Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to our world of darkness and level by level, where we are now working on the vampiric discipline of Auspex, which is effectively vampiric ESP or psychic capabilities. I've always thought that Auspex is one of those disciplines where the basic levels of it, such as Heighten Senses and things like that, really should be incorporated in most vampires, if not all. But that also takes into consideration the idea that all vampires should have like potent celerity and fortitude and stuff like that. So we'll not get into that. We are working with this amazing discipline, which is accessed by the Toreador, the Tremere, the Malkavian, the Hecata, various clans, and also if you take the proper predator type, because predator types always do come in consideration with what your vampire practices. Certain predator types are going to be more susceptible to having access to Auspex, in fact. Specifically, the Sandman and the Consensualist predator types are the ones that really hone in on this discipline, primarily because you are listening for the calmness in your victim, in my opinion, when it comes to the discipline that we're working on tonight, which is Heightened Senses. Now, the book says that the vampire's senses sharpen to a preternatural degree, giving them the ability to see in pitch darkness, hear ultrasonic frequencies, and smell the fear of cowering prey. I love the fact that they included smell the fear of cowering prey. It is interesting though, because in all the other systems, Heightened Senses also gave the backdoor entry into psychic abilities. There was always a chance that you might notice something with an extra perception at storyteller discretion, and this does seem to have done away with that, due to the fact that the higher levels dig right into psychic abilities, and I don't see the discipline suffering for that, because some of these vampires are simply going to learn Heightened Senses as a hunting tool in a fashion. Even if they are urban monsters, they're going to find a way to smell out the fear of the enemy, or listen to the heartbeat, to feel the sensation of someone's pulse when they shake their hands. There is going to be a multitude of reasons to use this. I also like the fact that in the Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt video game, all vampires have a heightened perception, and I love it. I love the fact that you can actually just run around and, like, if you hear gunshots, you can hit the X button, which will activate your heightened senses, and you can actually see the reverberations of the air where the bullets are flying through. So it does add a little bit more of an interesting way of playing, rather than just running around and hoping you run into somebody. I have personally used Heightened Senses through multiple editions of this game, because I do tend to play clans that have them. Historically, the Tzimisce had Auspex, and Heightened Senses was always one of the things that I was happy to have, because I would use it in my exploration of the world. I had a Toreador at one point in time where, after he was embraced and came to grips with his disciplines, when it started raining for the first time after his embrace, the first thing that he did was strip down, go outside, and sit through the entire rainstorm on the cold ground, just feeling all of the sensations, listening to the sound of the rain hitting the ground, the thunder crashing through the sky, smelling the scent of the soil as it called out for the rain, tasting the air with the just whole new levels of perception, and watching as the world around becomes a completely new thing because it's raining. And I think that it really is, there's definitely a thought of who uses what discipline in what way. Toreador vampires, for one, are going to be very big into the sensational boosting. High level humanity Kindred who are still having sex with humans are probably going to use the heightened sensation of touch during this process to make it that much more special, to give them reason to want to hang on to what humanity they have. I kind of always felt that the gangrel deserved at least heightened senses, but rearranging disciplines for that. Now we got predator types, so we can get away with that kind of thing, right? The Hikata are going to be using Auspex primarily to interact with the wraiths. Malkavians are going to be able to up their perception, which is probably not the best thing for them because they already tend to notice things that other people do not. And the Tremere are going to use heightened senses to glean that bit of information that they can from their blood studies. Now, the cost of heightened senses is free. However, that being said, there are circumstances where a cost might come into play, and we will get to that when we get into the duration of heightened senses. Dice pool is wits and resolve, but that's not typically for noticing something. Now, your storyteller could very well say that they want you to roll an awareness check, an investigation plus wits, or an awareness plus intelligence, or something like that. That could very well come up, but primarily the reason why we have a dice pool is for over exposure of the senses. The system states the user adds their Auspex rating to all perception rolls. If exposed to extreme sensations, such as a loud bang, flashes of intense light, or overpowering smells while the power is active, the user must succeed on a wits plus resolve difficulty of 3 or more roll to dampen their senses in time, or the overload causes them to sustain -3 dice penalty for all perception-based rolls for the rest of the scene. And I really do think that does make sense, because for anybody who has been exposed to something, if you've ever had the joy of wearing night vision goggles and having somebody turn on the lights, it's not permanent blindness, but it does last a little while. And that's the kind of thing that they're talking about, is having your senses overwhelmed and overpowered. And if you have them honed to a degree of supernatural proportions, and somebody does decide that they're going to blind you with a police flashlight, or even a sudden cell phone LED in your face at the wrong time, you are going to suffer for these things. Now, duration. Until deactivated, it can just keep on going. But having the power active for longer stretches of time without rest, such as more than a scene, especially so for high stimulus environments, might necessitate spending willpower at storyteller discretion. Now, first off, I can see this in nightclubs and things like that, or possibly if you're hunting in a wooded area and there's just the high stimulus of the crickets and the owls and the movement of the grass. And yes, these are high stimulus environments. But I can also see that the reason why this part was put in, this little escape clause for storytellers, is because there are players who just say that their heightened senses are always on, and they needed to give them some reason to not have that be a thing. As a storyteller who has had multiple Toreador in their game who constantly said, oh, well, my heightened senses are always on, I need to be told that specifically. I'm not going to assume that your heightened senses are always on. And if you do, I'm going to start being mean and having really obnoxious high beam cars drive up behind you and have that light flash in your eyes from your rearview mirror. It's so obnoxious for people to say that their heightened senses are always on, because there is going to be that sudden stimulus that is going to cause you to lose your sense of smell, go blind for the scene, lose your sense of hearing, overwhelm your taste buds to the point where you cannot perceive resonance. There's so many different things that could very well happen, and storytellers do need to defend themselves when it comes to that, because there are always going to be those players who just decide heightened senses is just how they live. So, I would like to know exactly what your favorite uses of heightened senses have been. I have read paper that someone has taken and ripped off by being able to feel the lines of the letters, being able to pick up what was written on pages 2 or 3 layers back from what I was working with at the moment. I have been able to see phone numbers and names on business cards from across the room. I have listened in on conversations in Elysium. What have you done? Hands up. Come on. Raise your hands and let me know exactly what you have done. Do not be shy, because Auspex is one of those quintessential vampire gifts that all of us should have the experience of using at least once. So, please, let me know what your heightened senses experiences have been. I am Voivode Maquette. This is Level by Level in Our World of Darkness, and we are going over Auspex. Class dismissed.